Calling the zoning hearing board meeting for Lower Makefield Township for December 5th, 2023 to order. First item to note here is we have only 4 members of the board present. So for an appeal to be approved, it requires a yay vote from 3 of the 4 members. So if that impacts anybody's decision-making process about whether they want a continuance or not tonight, please let us know. First up is Appeal Z23-2016, Meganus and Harris. They made a request for a continuance to February 6, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion or any public comment on this from anybody? Okay. All those in favor of continuing appeal Z23-2016 to February 6th? Aye. Okay. Appeals continued. Next up is Appeal Z23-2035. So can have the appellant sworn in, and then Adam Flager is going to read in the exhibits.
Would the 2 witnesses please state and spell your full name? State and spell your name.
I'm not sure they're hearing us.
Are you here for Joseph Menard?
That's Mr. Menard. That's your.
Oh,
that's
okay,
your-
so you can come up.
You come up there.
Yours.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
You state and spell your full name, please.
Say my name. Joe Menard, M-E-N-A-R-D, 917 Putnam Drive, Lower Makefield Township.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, we'll mark the exhibits as follows. We have the application as A1, site plans as A2, some of the project worksheets as A3, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
And separately, I want to update everybody. We now have 5 members of the board here. So the majority is still 3, but obviously that, just to clarify the situation. So you want to go ahead and explain what it is you're
Let me
looking?
ask you about that because I counted 5 people.
Well, no, what the 5th board member's online there.
Online, okay, good.
You can't have a, if it
Yep.
was 4 and 2-2, a tie vote is a no vote. So
Well,
now
We just
Can't have a
got
tie.
somebody off the feed. That's
So can you go ahead and explain what it is you're looking to do?
We're simply looking to put in a very basic paver patio in our backyard. Initially, with the computations used in the township's methodology, we were a little bit over on the impervious surface calculation. We submitted a the first time we were 4 cubic yards, or 4 cubic feet short of 100% mitigation. I don't know if you all know what 4 cubic foot looks like. It's pretty small. So in the second application, revised, I did have a very large tree within 20 feet of the patio that more than 100% mitigates the runoff calculations that the township requires. So at this point, I'm considering that we're in compliance.
All right, before I ask the township for their opinion here, because I know they want to have testimony regarding this. One question, I notice it says the property was acquired in 1976. So have you done any other construction that brought the impervious up to the prior to the paver patio you're talking about now that's at the 23%?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I'm gonna punt the question to Dan right now first.
I mean, I don't know the permit history off the top of my head, so I don't know why that's,
So what we did is we had a 3-foot pavement sidewalk in the front of the house, walkway, not the sidewalk, but a paveway in the front of the house.
Mhm.
And we widened that to 4 feet. And instead of just a straight shot down to the drive, we made a little bit of a curve to add some curb appeal to the house. That increased 120 square feet.
Thank you for that clarification. I know the township has some questions, so I'll let Ms. Kirk go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Menard, the rear paver patio you're proposing is what, 390 square feet?
Yes,
When you first acquired the property in 1976, what existed on the property?
everything that is there now except the widening of the front walkway and the proposed patio.
So the patio that shows on the plan at the rear of the property was there in 1976 when you bought it?
Yes, there was.
And you have obviously the 2-story house
Yes,
and a attached garage?
I'm going to clarify a statement I made. Now that you said two attached garage, we did add back 20 years ago, a small, let's say like a half garage, and I forgot about that. And we do have a building, we did get a building permit for that. So I did forget that.
Fine. How large is that half garage?
About 10 by 15, it's about the half the size of a regular garage.
So about 150 square feet?
I would say close to that or plus or minus, yes. You can't fit a car into it. It's more for storage.
And then and you didn't do any expansion of the driveway or anything off of Putnam?
The only thing we did in terms of the driveway is we had to add when it was repaved, we added 2 square feet of additional pavement in order to keep it from sinking. A driveway. It was under 2 square feet,
Okay.
to be fair, or complete disclosure.
Okay, and your proposal for 390 square feet on this patio and also is that just that section that you have on the photos that says arched fire area?
Correct.
That's the patio that you're talking about?
That's part of the patio.
That's part of it, okay.
I think, I don't have the calculation in front of me, but I have the detailed calculations of that arch area attached to the detail somewhere.
Well, on that sheet, it says the basic patio is 366 square feet. And then there's another 24 square foot walkway that's being added.
That's correct.
That's from what, the existing patio to this new patio area?
From the existing, well, the existing patio is a side door. So there's a side door coming off from the foundation was already there out to the patio. There's 8 feet between the door of the house and the front of the beginning of the patio, the proposed patio. So that's going to be 3 feet by 8 feet.
The door from the house
Correct.
to the old patio.
No, to the new patio.
He actually on the sheet, and Dan's bringing it up, it's broken out as 308 square feet for the main rectangular portion of the patio on his drawing and 58 for the arched. So that plus the walkway equals the 390.
That's fine. I was just trying to figure out the calculations. Okay. And based on what you completed for the stormwater control, it's your position that the existing tree and 2 new trees would control the runoff?
Plus the 6 trees we had the 6 pine trees we had added before that are within 100 feet of that patio.
Are you aware that your property as it presently sits exceeds the maximum impervious surface coverage by at least, 5% right now.
Well, before mitigation, yes.
And
And that's because if you look at the calculation of the whole, even before we did anything, the initial regulation of the township put our house over the limit in itself. So it wasn't very well planned out by the township because we were already over by the existing footprint of the house.
and I understand. What
Okay.
happened was, at the time the house was designed and built, the impervious surface calculation is different than what it is today. I understand that. But I'm sure you've been familiar with some of the severe storms that have occurred recently over the last few years, correct?
The township supervisors very distinctly pointed that out.
And there's no opportunity, or you're not willing to work with the township engineer to install some sort of stormwater management facility like a seepage pit or a drainage trench to help collect the water to assure that you reduce the effect of the impervious as close to the current allowable amount?
Well, that would be a reasonable solution if I didn't already have sufficient components of mitigation already in place.
Well, you have here evergreen trees. You said 6 of them have been planted, correct?
Yes, and this is per the township's mitigation calculation.
But with the volume of water that has recently occurred, especially this past summer, there's no way of assuring that those evergreen trees will remain rooted in the ground should another sudden severe storm happen.
There's no assurance if we have evergreen trees in our development that were approved by the township that have been there for 50 years. And maybe 2 of those 3,000 trees have fallen down. So yeah, you're right. They could fall down. Oh, so you plant a new one.
But it's your position that you don't want to install any other sort of stormwater management controls other than those trees that you have planted?
It's not that I wouldn't, but I don't need to because I'm already in compliance with the mitigation factors that were required.
I have no other questions.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I know this is mine. I'm with you on the trees. The only issue with the trees is you cannot be sure trees are not going to catch a disease or die or be hit by lightning, or the next person who has your home decides they don't like them and cuts them down. So the township has made a practice or a decision that we cannot accept trees as mitigation. I know I went through the exact same thing with my property as well. I have a 1976 built home. So you really have to come up with another type of mitigation because we cannot guarantee that the trees they're not a permanent solution.
All right, I have another question here. The way you described, you did about 120 square feet of additional sidewalk and 150 square feet of garage addition. Has that all been post 1987?
The garage could have been pre-1987. I don't remember.
Well, I'm asking because he says you've been there since 1976. That's
Right.
why I'm asking.
I just don't remember exactly when, but it was there a long time. I couldn't remember.
Okay.
But I wanted to at least tell you about it because I just don't remember when it was put in.
Okay. Other questions from the board? All right. I think we're going to come back around to the board in a little bit, but since there's people online, are any of those people online? or questions for this application? Comments from online?
There's nobody online.
Well, you do have a board member online, but I'm not sure that Matt, do you have something to add here? I think you might. No?
I've been having technical difficulty. I have a brand new computer, so I'm gonna restrain. I have not heard everything, so.
All right. Well, I guess the next question, another question I have here is you just mentioned the garage. When did you do the sidewalk in the front yard, widening it and putting a curve to it?
That was, I'm gonna guess within the last 2 years.
Okay.
Close
Which
to that.
does match your application because your application actually does say 2022 for adding the sidewalk. So I think at a minimum, we're going to ask for the mitigation to include whatever mitigation method we accept. If we accept one here, I would say that I would ask for, it's obviously up to the decision of the board what we're asking for, but I would ask that you also mitigate for that also, which would make it 510 square feet to be mitigated, not 390. Go ahead.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Well, you did 120 square feet of additional impervious surface work 2 years ago. Is basically what you're saying.
That's
That
in the
was-
front yard.
That's part of your property, and the calculation is figured based on the total area of your property. Dan?
Yeah, Dan, I was going to ask you what
That's
you would
correct.
suggest. What would you suggest for mitigation?
I mean, an infiltration trench. But I don't know the dimensions of what it would be based off of the 510. The 390 would be about 2 by 4 by 20.
It'd be approximately a third more than that, so it'd be 2 by, well, it'd be 3 by 4 would be too much. It'd be less than that.
What, 3 by 4 by 20 or
It'd be a little bit less than that.
2.5?
Yeah, something like that.
So I just would like to let the board know that the township is not necessarily in favor of mitigation by the planting of trees. Unfortunately, with the severe weather that we've been experiencing over the last several years, a more stable form of infiltration is being requested.
Mhm.
Obviously, we recognize that a lot of the impervious surface had occurred prior to the current ordinance. So we're not necessarily asking that mitigation be down to produce a net effect of 18% maximum, but at least bring it down to a decent number to help offset any stormwater.
I think a better solution would be instead of counting on God or storms or a future resident. I've been there 47 years, I guess. And we lost one tree to lightning, but I didn't include that in the calculation. It would be to say, okay, this is permitted with the given mitigation that has been accomplished. And if that goes away, then you have to do something else, because I'm following your own calculation and how to do this.
Well,
You can't shake your head when I'm actually following. If you look at your sheet for mitigating, I am in compliance.
Not saying that you're not, I'm saying that the township is not in agreement with using plantings or trees.
But you have it in your calculation as to do that, to mitigate. I can't help that you already have in.
What you're asking for is a variance from the zoning. Okay, so what we're doing is discussing what conditions might apply for you to receive the variance. It's not an automatic thing. So we're asking for a discussion and negotiation here. And actually, there's been a few different numbers already floated up here about what you would mitigate back to. So I'm suggesting you listen to what everybody's saying
I
here.
am listening.
Okay, so
And if I was after meeting the mitigation that's in your application that you send out to people, if I've complied with that, and if something else causes you out of compliance, then you should have me come back and then do whatever additional mitigation is necessary.
So are you requesting that you go back to the allowed impervious surface? So you're gonna remove all that?
that's the fifth board member who's online.
Can you repeat that, please?
So if you're asking to be in compliance based upon the town code, you're also requesting to remove the added impervious surface, so you don't need to be before the zoning board.
Well, I think I understand the purpose of having the hearings and reviewing, but once people are in compliance,
But you're not in compliance, sir.
You're
You
not.
exceed the impervious.
I mitigated.
Therefore, it's
No,
up to-
that
you didn't mitigate
mitigation-
anything.
I mitigated in accordance with the township's own calculation of how to mitigate.
However, you're not in compliance based upon the township's impervious surface, and therefore you're before this board. And we reserve the right to evaluate drainage and impervious surfaces in compliance with what you would request that is not part of the zoning board.
I disagree with your conclusion because it doesn't follow the facts.
So you'd like to withdraw your request?
No,
Okay, so you're gonna have to listen to what the board's saying.
I am listening, and this is a discussion. It isn't me sitting here and listening to you. This is a discussion, and we're discussing, I'm telling you my part of it, and I'm listening to your part of it.
You're telling us your opinion of it.
No, I'm saying I followed your regulations. I followed that form that you send out to show mitigation. What have you done to mitigate? And I explained it.
Maybe this will help. The board has the authority to grant, obviously, requested variances, but it also has the power to impose reasonable conditions upon those approvals. For every application that comes before the board having to do with impervious surface, unless it is a negligible amount, and by that I mean under 1% over, the board requires stormwater management. People can still plant trees. We love trees. The more the merrier. However, they're allowed to attach those reasonable conditions. And the reason why they do that is, as Judy correctly pointed out, is the next owner can do whatever they want and remove all of the trees that they want. And so the problem with that is if as you suggested, we say, oh, well, if something happens, you'll come back to the board. The approval is the approval. Once that approval is granted, this board does not have that power anymore. That approval is granted, it runs with the land. And that is the problem of with your suggestion of, oh, well, let's figure it out down the road. The board has to figure it out now, because now is when they have the authority to grant or to deny.
And so what type of there's various alternatives to doing this mitigation. So
We've seen dry wells, infiltration trenches for really small quantities. We've seen rain barrels, but obviously the amount you're asking for is more than can be sustained on a rain barrel. But those are solutions we have seen before the board there. Like I said, they don't get cut down, and there's something that can be checked on. Dan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, those are the main types that have been used for best management practices regulated by the DEP, I think.
So it doesn't, no, it's useless.
So going back to 2 years or whatever that you replaced the sidewalk in front of your house, did you seek a grant, variance to allow more impervious surface for that at the time?
I'm pretty sure we did the application because I have a building permit for it.
That's separate from asking for the variance for the increased impervious.
Yeah, I would have to look and see if he got a variance. I believe if he did, it was before I was employed here, so I would have to look into that. Right.
So I guess part of the township's concern is that some of these items that were modified on the property were done with the appropriate permits based on appropriate numbers of impervious surface calculations provided at the time of the application. Would it be wise to ask Mr. McClune, if possible, if we take a 5-minute recess to see if he can acquire the permit file to bring back?
Sounds reasonable.
And I have no problem with that. I think it's a very good idea.
I'll,
The other question I have in terms of doing this, not the sidewalk, but the walkway in the front of our house is in the front of the house. The patio is in the rear of the house. So how is one mitigation thing going to work?
You're mitigating the impervious on your property. So for instance, say that where you're putting this patio was the lowest ground on your property, you could do a mitigation measure that took impervious somewhere else. For instance, intercepting your rain leaders and putting them into it. You're mitigating that amount of impervious surface.
If I mitigate whatever I'm over, the 590, whatever it is.
Yep.
That takes care of the whole yard.
Yes, that brings you to what you've done. Now, we actually have to have a discussion about it because the township asked for Barbara's here representing the township, not the board. So she's presenting the township position. The board is independent of the townships.
I understand that.
Okay. So she has asked us about if we're possibly requesting for more mitigation beyond that. We haven't gotten to discussing that item yet. So, and whether the board feels that's necessary or not, which I cannot give you a sense as to that. So, but right now, let's take a brief 5-minute recess since Dan has already left the room to go get the information.
So there was
Everybody's back, so now we're back on.
the previous permit, 22-0651, was approved to replace the walkway in accordance with the approved plan. And per the application, it says, as set forth in supplemental info, this is not a construction project, but replacement of existing walkway at front of home. Is that what you're referring to?
I believe that's what we're referring
Okay.
to.
Yes.
So wait, slow down. So because it was dubbed a replacement of a walkway, but there was nothing in the permit application, Mr. McLuhan, that said they were making it wider?
Yes, there was.
Yes, it does. So it does say a 103 square foot increase.
Okay.
So that might have been marked as de minimis, or I think just because the way it was written in terms of replacement, it might have been an oversight.
Okay.
But yeah. But yeah, this, yeah, I don't know about the garage. This was just the most recent permit I pulled. So.
Okay. So I think a general question here, because the township made a request for more mitigation than what was more mitigation than the 390 square feet, significantly more it actually sounded like. But on the other hand, this is just a patio project. I think the board needs to weigh in now on what they believe it should be mitigated back to. I provided a starting point, but and it's, I think it's wide open right now to discussion on that.
Can I ask a question before you do that?
Yes.
I
Was at that point.
think in reading about mitigation,
Hmm.
or throughout a dry well, is that what you mentioned, or is that what?
That's an option, yes.
Okay.
So if I may, Mr. McLuhan mentioned an infiltration pit or trench. Dry well is a similar concept. It's just a matter of the size, capture a certain amount of stormwater runoff to reduce the net effect of the increase in an impervious surface.
And I.
Probably either one of those would be acceptable to us. Either one of those. I certainly don't want to build a $10,000 French drain around my property. So the either one of those two, if we can work it out with Dan and Jim, we'll do that.
Yeah, me and Jim will be more than happy to help you with the parameters with everyone.
Before this project, just as it was when they did the it was at 23.1.
No, that's
Now,
now is 23.1.
3.1, it was
And that-
22.4 before he did the sidewalk. He did
before the
amend-
sidewalk.
Before the sidewalk was 22.4.
And just so you're aware, many times with these approvals, the board, when they approve and put that condition to remediate back to a certain amount, you can then work with the township. We don't, the board doesn't necessarily dictate which option you have to choose.
Right. That's
As long
why I
as it's,
said we'll
as
work
long
that.
as it's acceptable to ultimately the township
Yeah.
engineer, you could figure out what works best for you, work with Dan and Jim, and then make that determination.
And that's why I threw out two to work with the township, because who knows sitting here today what's best.
Correct, yeah, and you want their engineering judgment on
Right.
checking things like make sure that it's draining for going someplace that
Well,
makes
as
sense.
I said, I want to
so.
make sure it's draining the right way, because
Yeah.
otherwise mitigation just goes into the house and doesn't
Yep.
mitigate. Well, the other thing I want to mention before we conclude this is many years ago, there were significant problems that you all are or should have been aware of. I'm sure I know Judy is, of people trying to come into the township and get approval of doing things with a house, to the point where you had contractors, once they found out where you live, refused to do a project. With the way Dan and Jim and Jamie work, this is a 5,000 improvement in terms of working with the township than what we had before. So I want to give them the recognition because this is a tough area, and I've known Jim when he was the township engineer, and they do a great job.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I believe we're,
So I think we should look to get mitigation to cover the 390 he's proposing and the 103 additional from the last project together, 493 feet, cubic feet or square feet.
square feet.
Yeah, let's not go.
Yeah, square feet.
As far as drywalls go, I have a property that I am under my impervious surface, but it's relatively flat around my house and we have clay soil. So when it rains, it doesn't drain very well. And we had so much work done to get the water away from our foundation using French drains, and we also use dry wells, one in the front yard, one in the back, that the downspouts on the highest roof of the house carry the water to. And then once they fill up, they then come out the top and drain downhill away from the house. At least they're not filling in around my foundation and causing, water damage to my own home. I had to be careful where I put them so I don't drain it to my neighbor's property as well.
Well, that's what we had when the development was first built. We actually had to have guys with the bulldozers actually come back out and redo about 5 yards because the drainage, the design wasn't right. So I understand what you're saying.
I know I have a different issue where we are built up more than other houses, and fortunately, we were in an area where it was completely agricultural, so there's a good amount of topsoil, but it goes down towards a creek. And if I don't mitigate, my neighbor gets flooded.
Exactly.
It's very simple. I won't, but they will.
Right.
If we go with so we'd be looking at 22.4% still, that 17% is negligible to the calculation. So
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
I think 22.4%, I believe still.
Is the existing?
No, the existing is 23.1, 22.4 would be pre-sidewalk
Oh, okay.
adjustment.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve Appeal Z 23-2035, subject to mitigation back to 22.4%, utilizing stormwater detention set to the satisfaction of the township engineer. Any discussion?
Are most of the houses at 22.4 in that area?
It's under 18% now for the
I
code.
know, but I was thinking the old 18 even, or 19.
Yeah, it's still,
I'm,
but he's just adding a paid.
I know.
We can discuss.
I,
We're here for, yep.
I know, but I just always,
ask me.
I always worry that you were here like I was in the mid-90s when the bridge here at Edgewood Road was flooded.
Our neighbor drowned in that.
Yes, exactly. And our friend ended up in a tree. I always concern myself that it happened once. I think it was like 20 inches of rain in no time. And that's my only concern.
And I don't think there's nothing you can do to mitigate everything.
No, there isn't.
So that's why it's got to be practical.
I'm fine then. You guys are.
Any other comments? Is there a second then? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all is opposed? All right, the motion carries as just discussed, so I can work with, Dan and Jim.
The only thing I would recommend is on the impervious calculation sheet, you need to have a better understanding, give the people a better understanding. Just like I came in here thinking I complied. And then I get in here and you tell me I don't comply. Well, it's,
So the main reason it's there right now is like, so say if you're getting a building permit and you're under the impervious, you still have to account for the stormwater management. So I think the rationale for that was to kind of create a credit where you didn't have to like do a stormwater management thing because you're already under the allowable. So I think, and you're right, I agree, we do need to change the worksheet. And we do have an RFP out right now on our website to work with a consultant to kind of look at our whole entire stormwater management ordinance. So I do think it's something that is a very highly contested thing in the township right now, just in light of the flooding and stuff. What's that? Yeah.
and also it doesn't take into account the way some of the newer calculations work with mitigation or stormwater management in terms of, as you pointed out, the water drains in different directions and one shoe doesn't take care of all that. And the regulations need to be adjusted to accommodate the new methodology for calculating stormwater management.
I think the township is looking into alternatives. As Ms. Rice said, a lot of the area is a clay soil. So there's difficulty with infiltration. So it's an overall review.
Well, and I guess that's like when you're applying for building permits, they do have soil tests, and that's part of the reason, because it creates runoff. So, all right. Thanks.
All right, next up is Appeal Z 23-2040. It is Bruce and Gloria Pellegrino.
I am moving them into the room now.
Okay, so please state your name and get sworn in.
Would the two witnesses state and spell their full name, please?
And it's *6 to unmute.
Muted.
You gotta
hear me?
speak up. We can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Bruce Pellegrino, last name is spelled Pellegrino, and Gloria.
Gloria Pellegrino.
And Colin Craig, who's there from Munns Construction, will be presenting.
Colin Craig, would you spell your full name, please?
Sure. COLINCRAIGE.
Do all three of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Flagger, read in the exhibits, please.
Sure, we have the application as A1, 12-sheet site plans as A2, impervious surface breakdown, as well as the stormwater management small project volume control collectively as A3, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
Okay, if you guys would like to present what you're asking for here.
Sure. This is Colin Craig, representative from Munns Construction, contractor for the Pellegrinos. They're proposing an addition that would be an additional 358 square feet to what they currently have on their lot, and would like to mitigate that additional 60 cubic feet with a dry well system. The size of 4 feet deep, 5 feet wide, and 7.5 feet long. And that would make up the additional 60 cubic feet for the addition that we're proposing.
Okay. Ms. Kirk?
So, Mr. Craig, I'm not sure if you would know the answer to this or not, but according to the information provided, it shows that the property already exceeds the maximum allowed 18% impervious surface coverage. What is the basis for that existing increase?
You're saying from the 18 to where they currently stand?
Correct. So apparently the paperwork says that they have 20.5% impervious surface coverage on the property right now.
Correct. That would be an existing non-conforming. Bruce and Gloria, would you have any input to that?
That's as built. The house has not been modified, as far as I know, since it was built. We've been here the last 10 years. So it should be as planned, as submitted with the township and Toll Brothers.
So, Mr. Pellegrino, you have not added any walkways or patios to the property since you own it?
No, we have not.
No increase in like driveway widths or anything of that nature?
No, we have not.
Okay, and you're in what, the Yardley Hunt area?
Yeah, it's one of the Yardley Hunt houses.
Obviously, is it your soil there like clayish?
For the most part, I've added some soil for a garden in the back. So, I mean, that's really good soil back there. It's
Clay would be red, right?
Yeah, it's not real clayish. It's clay underneath, but there's a good topsoil on it.
So obviously, the township is concerned about the increased stormwater runoff. Would you be willing to increase the size of the proposed trench to bring it down to a net effect of 18% impervious surface coverage?
What's the additional size required for that with the?
Yeah, Bruce, I had that information as well. If the township would like to see it back at the 18 allowable, that would be and again, these can vary in depth and width and also length, but we do have one proposed at 3 feet deep, 9.5 feet wide by 11.5 feet long, and that would cover the additional total 130 cubic feet, which would be back to the 18% allowable.
All right. Thank you very much for providing that comment. Discussion, questions from the board? All right. Are you amenable to the 18%, mitigating back to the 18%? The board would certainly look on that favorably. If you look at our minutes from our last meeting, you'll see that sort of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if that can work and fits on the property in the proper location, I don't see why not.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment? Any public comment online?
There's no public comment online.
I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we grant appeal Z 23-2040 with the condition that was mitigated back to the 18% with the approval of the township engineer.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Appeal Z 23-2040 is approved as discussed. Next up is Appeal Z 23-2041. Sam and Lisa Chubb, and are Are you continuing to hang out on there, Colin, for this one?
Yeah, I'll be taking this one as well. That worked out nicely. And it's going to
Go
be
ahead, get sworn in.
very smooth
Actually,
process.
are they in the room? Are they in the room yet?
I'm online. Can you hear me?
Sam.
Yes. Okay.
Sir, would you state and spell your full name?
It's Sam Chud, CHUD, 1807. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Flager, will you read in the exhibits?
Would be my pleasure. We'll have the application as A1, site plans as A2. Again, the impervious surface and the stormwater plans as collectively as A3. B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
Okay, go ahead and discuss what you're proposing here.
Sure. Similar to the last project, Mr. Chud currently with Munns Construction has an approved permit to build a garage structure and would like to be able to access that garage with the extension of his driveway. So that is what we're asking for today would be the additional, and again, I have a dry well size to mitigate the additional 858 square feet of driveway to the new garage location. And that dry well size for the 143 cubic feet would be 4 feet deep, 8.25 feet wide, and 11 feet long.
Okay.
How did this property get to 24%?
So we do have an approved permit based off the garage, and that garage that has not been built yet. We wanted to make sure we can get the driveway approved before building the garage is included within that calculation. And we did receive an approved permit from the township to build said garage.
Colin, can I just add that that garage is actually replacing an already existing covered porch? House was constructed in 1960, so the 24%, I believe, derives all the way back to when it was constructed.
Dan, is this one of the areas in town that the zoning was redone on?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is this one of the areas of town that the zoning was updated for a reduced impervious coverage calc?
I don't think so, no. Yeah, it's in Westover. I think it's always just been 18% since the zoning ordinance was adapted, yeah.
But given the neighborhood it's in, it was constructed long before the current ordinance, long before.
Yes, it is one of the older properties, yeah.
Right.
All right, Ms. Kirk, since you're here, do you have any comments?
Mr. Craig, can you describe for the board the elevation of this property?
Yeah, sure. And Sam might have a better sense of it since it's his home. But essentially, the house does sit, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, higher up where the front yard does run down to the street, correct, Sam?
Correct. The property is sloped from the back to the front. Not sure exactly how to describe it. It's probably about a 10-foot difference from the back of the property line all the way to the front of the property line.
So with the way it slopes, I guess the issue is also the additional stormwater will be draining from your property down to other residents. Would you be amenable to increasing the size of your infiltration trench in order to bring it back down to a net effect of 18%? Not only to deal with the increase that you're putting on the property, but to deal with the increase that has been sitting there for the last how many years?
To answer your question, first of all, just to clarify the property, the water runs down the driveway because of the slope, and there's a drain at the bottom of my driveway where the water does drain into. But as far as bringing it back down to 18%, as long as Colin can figure out the proper dimensions and placement, I'd be fine with that.
Just so you know, one of the goals of the stormwater management system is to reduce the amount of water that's actually getting into those drains, because with these storms, what happens is there's a limit to how much can be handled in the detention system before it all goes down and creates a
Agree. I just
flooding
wanted,
situation downstream.
no, yeah, I know, totally agree. I just, when Mrs. Kirk said the water runs into neighbors, it actually runs into the drain, and there's Vernon Road is across from my driveway. So right now, that's not an issue, but again, as people have discussed about future mega storms, I'm fine with Colin, if you're okay with figuring out how to get it down to 18%.
Yep.
And I was gonna also suggest, doesn't necessarily have to be one huge infiltration pit. If Mr. Craig can figure out to place two different trenches somewhere on the property to capture the water, to bring it to an 18%, township's not gonna have any problem with that.
Okay. And yeah, us in speaking with Sam prior too, I've been to a lot of these meetings and kind of expected that. But just wanted to, yeah, we're going to hopefully come up with the most cost-effective means of mitigating that would, suffice for the township in the form of the drywall.
Another method that's used for mitigation has not frequently before the board, but it has been done sometimes, or to reduce the amount that needs to be mitigated, is to remove other pavement. And it appears that you might have, it looks like you have a section of driveway going to an existing garage. Is that garage being converted to be part of the house? And in that case, could some of that driveway be removed, which would reduce the amount of increase in impervious surface?
That could be a consideration. The reason we're building a new garage, the driveway slopes down. The garage is under the house, and the driveway has like a 45-degree slope, which during the winter time makes it fairly treacherous trying to bring cars up and down that driveway. So that's one of the reasons why, the main reason why we want to put a new garage, replacing the existing porch up top. But we could look at that drive. I don't know. It sounds like we're going to do a dry well anyway. Are you suggesting we also look at removing pavement to reduce the size of the dry well?
That's an option that the board will certainly look at.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at your overall impervious, you're getting up to, you're at 28+%. So, that's almost a third of your property is paved, just shy of it. So there's 25 to 30%. And if you were to remove portions of that driveway, that would reduce your impervious. You wouldn't have to mitigate as much. And, you might incorporate some added green space into it to make your property look a little bit less paved.
Okay.
So is there any public comment in the room? Okay. Yes, because you've been here okay. If you're not this appeal? Okay. Is there any public comment online?
There's no public comment online.
All right. Would you be acceptable to the board making a proposal to reduce it to 18% effective, subject to approval of township engineer? But that would give you the leeway to part of that could be at your discretion, removal of pavement to bring it down to that. So you're not having to actually use stormwater mitigation measures.
So you're saying this is a negotiation with the township engineer?
Well, it's not really a negotiation. If you remove 300 square feet of paving, there's 300 square feet less you have to do mitigation measures for, which Jim and Dan could account for.
Yeah, I just think I'm open to that possibility. I think I just want to understand the combination of dry well and potentially removing any driveway.
Right, Sam, and we would explore all those options. And from what I'm hearing and from the board is that, approval would, be based upon whatever we end up, me and you agreeing on that you'd be happy with, that would also fall within the parameters that we're talking about, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then, and just to clarify, Colin, and to the board, we're talking about bringing it down to 18%. Is that what we're looking for?
That's what the board is talking about right now. You can counter propose. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was gonna say, so the effective impervious rate, we'd like to see back to 18%, but what you're adding to this, would, I mean, honestly, I'd like to see less actual impervious coverage than what you're proposing. So, but this is just my opinion. I think under no circumstance would you be allowed to pave anything more than what you're showing on the plan right now. But again, I'll say I would love to see less impervious pavement.
Okay.
Other comments from questions from the board? So we'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve appeal Z-23-2041 with the stipulation that they bring water mitigation in to reduce impervious surface down to 18% in any means that is approved by the township engineers.
So we approve, modify that to approve per the application to a maximum of 28.6% impervious mitigated back to an effective 18%.
Motion.
Your motion.
I'll second. 'Cause I had-
Any discussion? Matt, it looks like you're thinking, so that's why I keep looking at you here.
Yeah, I don't know. You brought up the added driveway, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, is it, if we approve it as it stands, is it just gonna be like, now we have 6 parking spaces in front of a residential home, or, is there a way to, I don't know. It's,
That's why I kind of tried to phrase it as to a maximum. So that
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
I don't, is there a better way? Go ahead. If you got another.
no,
suggestion.
I like the way you phrase it. I'm comfortable with the way you phrase it. I'm gonna reinforce to the applicant to, really consider removing some pavement. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, my only point is that the driveway, the existing driveway you see is actually it's below grade, it's below ground. You don't even see it from the road. And my only concern about attacking that, so to speak, is the previous owner put in a big drainage system. So when the water runs down the driveway, it goes into a drain. I'd be worried. I understand what you're saying, and I would like to consider that. I just don't want to have an issue where water is running down that driveway into the garage.
Understood.
So that's why I'm kind of hesitant. But other than that, we'll work with the township engineer to figure out the best way to get it down to 18%.
Okay. All right. Yeah, understand. I don't want you ruining your property or causing any more damage than is required. So.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Appeal Z-23-2041 is approved as noted.
Thank you.
Free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and apparently somebody wants to present other business, so come up and state your name. Yes. speak into the microphone because
Sure. Desiree Holsworth, DESIREE HOLTZ
Please.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. I live at 2012 Yardley Morrisville Road. I have signed approved building plans for the lot next to me. The first issue I have, these building plans say the minimum lot requires 34,000 square feet. The existing square footage of that lot is 11,400. And it's supposed to be a non-conforming lot based on that it was created prior to January 1st, 1947. That is not correct. I have a deed here. That lot was subdivided in 1951. I've had a lot of conversations with Jim. He tells me that there is an existing ordinance from 1951 that says that 11,000 square feet was still within agreeable things. I've requested that information multiple times. At this point, I haven't gotten anything regardless of requesting it. And I think that it is a zoning issue. Based on this, it should be a zoning issue. It doesn't meet requirements.
So what is it that you've requested? I'm the attorney for the township. What is it that you have requested?
I was told, so I have multiple forms of communication from Jim that say this is a non-conforming lot. And he's thrown out different dates. He's thrown out the date 1947. I have an email from him that says it's non-conforming because it existed prior to 1939. So this deed shows that it was subdivided by the Westover Corporation to the original owners to the smaller lot. It was originally 100 feet wide. 1951, it was subdivided. Now it's 60 feet wide.
Okay.
That was 1951. So these building plans that are signed and approved say that it's in accordance with a date prior to 1947. That's wrong. So
That's not what I asked. What is it that you've asked that you said you're not getting?
Jim told me that the 11,000 square foot was in compliance according to what was the ordinance of 1951. And I said, okay, let me see it. It seems kind of crazy to me that you could build this house. But if that was the rules, then why can't I see it?
So do you understand that there may not have a copy of the ordinance from 1951?
So then how can you base a decision based on those facts if you don't have the facts?
He may have some
do-
notation in the file about it.
Did he show you, there's like a green book, like an old, okay, so,
I've asked several times and I haven't gotten it.
okay. He showed me something in a green book, so if you wanted to come into our office, I could show you, I think, his reasoning for why he sent you that email. So if you wanted to come in tomorrow, we could show you the ordinance I think he's referring to.
I mean, but based on the documents that are here, it should be a conforming lot. And he's saying that it's not.
If the time that lot was created, regardless of how it happened, whether it existed, got subdivided, if at the time that lot got created, it was supposed to be 11,000 square feet per their zoning regulations at that time, or possibly by an approval of a zoning hearing board based on a variance. And since then, the regulations have changed to say lots now have to be a larger size. Under the law, that is a legal non-conforming lot, saying even though it doesn't meet today's current regulations, because it did way back when it was created, it can exist in its present size.
Right, I understand that.
Okay, so I
But-
guess I'm confused as to what the issue is.
I would just want proof that it was a conforming lot in 1951. Because
Well,
all
to
the
the extent-
documentation.
To the extent that information is here at the township, again, Mr. McLoone said you can come in, ask for him, and he'll show you what we have. But that's assuming the township still has on file all that information from 1951. Not everything they have is on microfiche like it may be up in Doylestown where you pulled the deed.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. I just don't understand how you can approve something, but you can't, like, okay, 1951, A and B is required. So how can you sign off it's approved according A and B is required?
Yeah.
But I don't see the documentation that says what A and B is.
Well, I would say at this point, come in and talk to Mr.
I've
McLean.
tried.
You,
just
you
sent it.
have tried, but I don't think you specifically asked for the document which I'm referring to. So if you come in tomorrow, I'll gladly show you the document that I think Mr. Majewski is referring to in his emails. You've been in, but the reason I don't think you've been given what you're looking for is because I don't think you've explicitly asked
I have
for
email
that.
communication where I have explicitly asked for that.
Okay.
And it goes unanswered
The other,
weeks at a time and phone
Okay.
calls don't get returned.
the other option is, there's a thing called the right to know law. You can come in and fill out a right to know request specifying what it is that you're looking for, submit it to the township, and they have certain obligations under the law to respond to those requests.
And then
And
my
that-
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Well, but that might be the easiest course of action, that if you feel you're not getting an appropriate response.
Okay, great. The only other concern I have is they've had signed building plans and I also have an issue of the building plans that are signed and approved, the data in them is incorrect. So how can they be approved when it states in the building plan something that's just simply not true?
Okay, so first of all, when building plans are submitted, they're usually done by an architect or an engineer.
Mhm.
And a township has to rely on the information that's presented in those plans as being accurate. There's not a person in the township that independently goes out and does a survey of the lot. It doesn't work that way. So somebody either falsified the plans and submitted it to the township, or there's other information out there that you're not aware of. And the only way to find it is either come in and talk to Mr. McLoone and look at the book he's talking about, or submit a right to know request with specificity as to exactly what you're looking for. And then the township has to respond under the law.
Okay, you can continue this discussion with them afterwards, but it's not a zoning hearing board type issue, so that doesn't apply to those of us up here, and, okay?
Okay, I think it should require variance, so that's,
But I understand that, but that has to be dealt with at their level, not ours, until you get to the point, okay?
okay.
All right, we, I believe, have already canceled the meeting for next. Not yet, okay.
I will move that we cancel our next meeting, which would be December 19th, and continue after the first of the year.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, I believe, Dan, you have the meeting scheduled, because I believe our first meeting in January is not on.
It's on a Wednesday. It's January 3rd.
Correct.
So we'll be Wednesday, January 3rd is our first meeting instead of the 2nd. And then the next meeting, this will still be the 16th.
16th, and currently that is scheduled to be a Selco meeting.
And you will need a few substitutes.
Yes.
Well, you'll meet our
the
substitutes on the
third-
16th.
I will not either.
The third,
That's right, and Judy
A party
will
also.
need to be attending on the 16th, January 16th.
and then, yeah, and you could get, well, no, as long as everyone else is there, you just need them.
Yeah, we'll need the others, that's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
And then if not, you can ask the other alternate. Okay.
Okay. I believe we have our reorganization too on the 3rd.
Yeah, but I think we also have a regular meeting.
Yeah, I know it'll be a reorganization then.
Yeah, yeah,
so.
reorg then meeting. Yeah.
So if you don't show up.
So,
Yeah,
so
Judy
wait,
can
wait.
tell you about that.
You can bet your bottom dollar I'll be here.
Does that mean we're voting on a new chairman?
No, we can leave him right where.
No.
No.
All right.
Adjournment.
Does anybody want?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we're done for the day here. End of the year.